You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholic, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And we got some main course for you. We're back with some main course, and this will be the Saints matchup against Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, and I believe that is a noontime game, noon Central, 1 Eastern time. And this is a surprisingly a more competitive matchup than it looked like it was going to be earlier in the season when the Minnesota Vikings started really slow, and then of course they lost Kirk Cousins, and then the Saints. Saints started 2-0, but then went on a losing streak there. I definitely imagine there's points in this season when no one expected these two teams to be 5-4, above 500 when this matchup rolled around. And even without Kirk Cousins, I'm not sure that this game has gotten any easier or not. But anyways, before we get too far in this with the injury reports and then my game picks for player of the game, hot take and game pick, game score, I just need to address something. So I really took it to it. The mullet took quite a bit of hit here on the length, but we got it cleaned up, looking clean in the front. It's still got a little length in the back, but nothing too serious. But it's still there, and the mustache, we still got the stash going for y'all. But yeah, we definitely took the scissors and the clippers to the mullet. It was getting a little too long. I had worked some hospitality jobs here not too long ago where they were starting to make me wear a hairnet, so I had to it ended up affecting the mullet a little bit, but I think it still looks clean, shaved on the sides. So but yeah, it's the money making mullet had to take a hit to its bank account a little bit. But anyways, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. You see, it's still looking clean. But anyways, let's get into this injury report here, because there's really not much of one. This is the healthiest the Saints have been, and this is probably one of the more healthier teams that they've played this year as well. There's really, well, I guess I kind of take that back a little bit with the Minnesota Vikings, seeing how they're having some issues with Kirk Cousins and then Justin Jefferson. So they're missing like 3 of their best players, the third one being Danielle Hunter. But anyways, let's get into this injury report, and then we'll get to everything else. So can I get a menu? And so there's really no surprises on this injury report. Nothing new popped up during the week. No one got hurt during practice. It was just the two guys, the two young players, the rookies that just went out injured in the game last week against the Bears, are the only players that are really are significant status for this game due to their injuries carrying over to the practice week leading up to the Vikings game. But so the first one is Kendra Miller, running back. He had like 2 pretty exciting and one catch that was an explosive play that picked up a lot of yards against the Bears last week. But then of course he has like 1 carry for a short gain after that big explosive play that he made in receiving game, and next thing you know, he's going out with an ankle injury. I mean, Kendra Miller, man, it's not that he's just like injury prone, but it's just that it's like it's every injury. He's been injured with like everything this year. Like coming into the season, it was like known that he had just had like surgery or cleanup on his knee, and then during training camp and preseason, he strained his hamstring, and since then he's been wearing like a knee brace and then having his like thigh and hamstring wrapped. And then and then leading up to this game against the Bears, he didn't practice on Friday due to an illness, which everyone's had that, so that's not that big a deal. But then hurts his ankle, and after like only having like 2 or 3 touches in the game against the Vikings, he rolls his ankle. So he didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday, and his game status is that he's out. And that's just disappointing to me because I know there's a lot of people that are probably hating on Kendra Miller a little bit and calling him injury prone and this and that. But man, anytime he gets a couple touches, especially in the receiving game, he always makes a big play. He really reminds me of Alvin Kamara a little bit with just how he doesn't get a lot of touches, but every time he does, he seems to make a big play. And a lot of times it's in the receiving game. It's either like from like a will route out of the backfield or a screen or something. And he's picking up 15, 20 yards off of plays like that. So it's just disappointing more than him being out and people wanting to call him injury prone. I just like him to be healthy for a little bit of a run so you could really get to see the full potential and what kind of player he is. But he's just never healthy consistently, not so far. And then Isaiah Foskey, he defensive end, the second round pick that they picked out of Notre Dame. He's dealing with a quadricep, and he didn't practice Wednesday, he didn't practice Thursday, and he didn't practice Friday. And that injury and then at that position that hurts just because they're already dealing with like depth issues. I guess really the only players that you have now with missing Isaiah Foskey and Peyton Turner. So the only real defensive ends you have is like Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, and Tano Passanio are like you're getting kind of thin there at defensive end if Foskey's not going to be able to play and Peyton Turner still on IR. And I mean, Foskey was kind of looked like he was starting to come on, and they were kind of starting to give him like more snaps, and he almost made like the game clinching moment in the game against the Colts where it looked like he forced a sack fumble on a play, but it ended up coming back that it had been called a forward pass. But you're just starting to see some flashes from Foskey, and then of course he's out with a quadricep injury. But both those injuries are annoying with Kendra Miller ankle and Isaiah Foskey quadricep. But just from what I've heard early on, hopefully they're nothing too serious to where they need to go on IR and automatically miss 4 games and all that business. So hopefully it's just a day-to-day, a week-to-week, day-to-day type of injuries, and hopefully they'll be back after the bye week, which that would be amazing if the Saints can get to 6-4 and go into the bye week still as the like two games above 500 and the number 1 seed in the NFC South. That would just be amazing to bask in glory in that, and then be able to watch stress-free football over the next week while they're on a bye. That would just be awesome. And then third player on the Saints list is Ty Summers, special teams linebacker Ty Summers, who was initially last week he was dealing with concussion, but I think it was also he was dealing with a concussion and a hamstring, so they just have him listed as a hamstring now. So he's obviously past concussion protocol, and he was full Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then has no game time designation. And then Demario Davis, they've just been being real cautious with him. He's been having a sore knee, but hell, he he made the game clinching play last week against the Bears with a strip sack fumble. Uh, so Mario Davis, who's you couldn't with the last 2 weeks, the game against the Colts, he had like 12 tackles, and then in this game against the Chicago Bears, he had the strip sack that ended the game. So they've been saying he's been dealing with a sore knee for about the last month or so. But if you watched him in the last 2 games, you wouldn't know it. But Mario Davis, linebacker, knee, he was full Wednesday, full Thursday, full Friday, no game time status. So that's good to see that he's back on full practice. And then Adam Prentice, who's on IR or is going to be coming off of IR. It depends on if he plays this week. If he's gonna play against the Vikings, or whether he's going to actually be activated yet uh, off of IR, because he's already missed the 4 days, and then now the 21 day, I think it's a 21-day practice window he has in there to where he can practice with the team and all that business. But at some point during that 21-day time period, he needs to be activated to the active roster and into a game day roster. If not, then he'll just go on season-ending IR. But so Adam Prentice, who he got before he got hurt, not very many people were very happy with him due to a horrible drop on a pass that he had in a couple games back in a game that they lost. But he's been dealing with a knee injury, but he was full Wednesday, full Thursday, and full Friday, and he's listed as questionable. So I think that's probably not just he was full all week, but I think it's questionable whether they want to activate him yet to take up another person's roster spot, or even if they may just like Colin Saunders' package from the fullback position. I've enjoyed that more than I have any time that Adam Prentice has been here, and I think you could probably argue it's a little more effective too. I don't know how sustainable it is, because it's one of your key defensive players. He's like one of your rotational or starting defensive tackles. To have double the workload on him, I don't know how good that is, but I've liked the results more with Adam Prentice as your fullback, or not Adam Prentice, but Colin Saunders as your fullbacks than I have Adam Prentice. He got a lot of hate before he went on IR due to some of the bad offensive plays that he made, not as a lead blocker. And then Ryan Ramczyk, offensive tackle, it's listed as not injury related / rest, and he wasn't on the injury report Wednesday, wasn't on the injury report Thursday, but then was listed on Friday. But he has no game time status or designation, so he should be good to go. So it doesn't get much better than that health wise. You don't have like any like key players that are on season ending IR. The only one that's on like short term IR and possible they may not come back is Peyton Turner. But I've heard that they like where he is at in his recovery, and that there's a good possibility that he could be coming back in a couple of weeks. So just that you don't have any like superstar elite players on IR, and then currently the only two that you have that are hurt and going to miss this game are just rookies that haven't been big time key contributors anyways. So yeah, it sucks for their development and for them to be able to get reps and become better players, but they haven't really been factors in whether you've won or lost any of these games. So it's not a huge loss for any players that you're going to lose. Those probably hurt the least, but they still hurt because you want to see those young guys getting out there, getting more reps and getting more experience. And honestly, I'd love to see Kendra Miller be a full 100% fully healthy for once, because I'd love to see him get like a full workload in a game, because he's flashed and showed the ability to make big plays, but he just can't stay healthy. And then it's just kind of a question mark about Foskey. But this team is healthy. as it could possibly be at this point in the season, considering their bye week is next week. So if they can get out of this game against the Vikings relatively healthy and then have an entire bye week set up behind it and no freaky stuff happens during the break, hell, the Saints may be one of the healthiest teams in the league. I guess that would come week 10, come week 12, week 12 when they come back and play the Falcons. But yeah, they're healthy. I cannot complain about their injury report, and it's not a good excuse right now either to say, oh well, they're not healthy, they got injuries, because that's not true. All right, let's go on to the Minnesota Vikings injury report, which it's a little longer, and they definitely do have some elite players, and some of their best players are on IR or are going to miss this game. But let's get into it right now. So Jaron Hill, quarterback. I can't say that I'd ever heard of him before Kirk Cousins went out and he was having to come in and start for him. So that's the big thing that the Minnesota Vikings are dealing with, and it's one of the things that pretty much is a train wreck for most teams in the league. Is when you lose your starting quarterback. I mean, it's pretty much over, you know. So they had this Jaron Hill come in the week after, and he's being backed up by Joshua Dobbs, and he's only in for a couple of plays before he gets knocked out with a concussion. And then Joshua Dobbs ends up having the late game heroics and pulling off that win last week against the Falcons. But Jaron Hall, he's in concussion protocol. He did not practice Wednesday, did not practice Thursday, and did not practice Friday, and he's out. So thanks, we'll be seeing Joshua Dobbs and that heartfelt story, that feel good story that everyone's been hearing about him, about how he's been on multiple different teams and then got traded to the Vikings at the deadline, and then only had 3 days of practice in and hadn't even learned the playbook yet. And next thing you know, he's coming in as the starter for the starter, and ends up helping them win the game and have a comeback against the Falcons, which it's a nice story, you know, and it's something that you hear from time to time in these leagues. It's a good feel-good story, but I think it's going to come to an end. And it'd be interesting to see who his backup is going to be. So, those are two quarterbacks that the Vikings are already missing this season. So Jaron Hall, Kirk Cousins backup, and Kirk Cousins, who has been the long-time starter. He's been the starter for the Vikings for 3-4 seasons now. But won't have to play an official starter. The Saints get to play quite a few backups or inexperienced quarterbacks through the rest of their schedule. Okay. All right. The next player on the list is Dean Lowry, defensive end, groin. He's like a depth rotational player on that defensive line of the Vikings, and he didn't practice Wednesday, but he was limited Thursday, limited Friday, and listed as doubtful. So I imagine he probably won't play. And then KJ Osborne, wide receiver, concussion. So I don't know if he sustained that concussion against the Falcons or the week before that, because usually if you sustain it in the game prior, then you're almost guaranteed to be out a week. But he didn't practice Wednesday, but was limited Thursday and was full on Friday and was listed as questionable. So that has more to do when he sustained that concussion. If he sustained that 2 weeks ago, then there shouldn't be much argument or question of whether he plays or not. But they have him listed as questionable for now. And then Brian Asamoah, linebacker, ankle. He was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, limited Friday, and is questionable. I imagine he would play. And then Christian Darashaw, offensive tackle, he's one of their starting right or starting left tackle, has been dealing with a groin injury and was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, but full Friday, no game status or designation. And then their starting tight end, T.J. Hawkinson, ribs. He was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, limited Friday, and he's listed as questionable. So that's he's probably their one or two of their biggest weapons right now because of this player being out, and that's Justin Jefferson, who's been out for a while now and has been on part-time IR or PUP list and been dealing with a hamstring, and he's finally come back and has been able to practice with the team. Uh, but he was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, limited Friday, and is listed as questionable. But just reading reports and statements from other players, and even the statement from him saying like he feels good, he's able to play, but he doesn't want to come back until he's 100%. So just now being the first like open window for him to start practicing and possibly return for a game, I would be surprised if he returns like the first week that he's actually able to practice with the team and get familiar with Joshua Dobbs. I just would be a little surprised by it, but there's nothing that can be a surprise when it comes to injury reports leading into Saints games, because you may have a player that says that they got their leg amputated and didn't practice all week, and then the next thing you know, they're playing on Sunday. But it would be very beneficial to the Saints if Justin Jefferson didn't play, because he's the one that called game last year in the game. I guess that was a game in Europe, or it was in London. He called the game against the Saints in that overseas game. He burned Marshawn Lattimore on one of the last big plays of the game, being able to retake the lead in that game. So it would be beneficial if Justin Jefferson didn't play, because when healthy, he is one of, if not the best wide receiver in the league. But he was limited all week and is just listed as questionable. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's nothing definite yet with his decision. All right, on to next player, Johnny Mundet, tight end. He's dealing with a knee injury. He's limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, and full on Friday. No game time status designation. And Jalen Naylor, wide receiver, hamstring. He was full all week, no game time designation or status. And then Chris Reed, guard, foot, full all week, but is still listed as questionable. And then James Harrison, his was not injury related / rest, and so he wasn't on the injury report on Wednesday, but didn't practice on Thursday, which was probably not injury related, something not injury related, and then wasn't on the injury report on Friday, and then has no game time designation. So they have their injury report, the Vikings injury report, compared to the Saints is quite a bit longer, but there's only like they're it's quite a bit longer, but majority of the players on that injury list are going to probably play, but the quality of players that are on it and are on their IR are quite substantially more impactful than any of the ones the Saints are dealing with, because the Saints really aren't dealing with really any serious injuries yet. But the Vikings, they're missing Kirk Cousins, their long time starting quarterback. Been their starting quarterback for 4 or 5 years now. And then Dean Lowry is a rotational defensive lineman, so he's someone that gets snaps. And then they're missing an offensive player of the year candidate in Justin Jefferson, an all-pro wide receiver. So that's nothing really compared to the Saints. The main thing that'll be interesting to see how this game goes is if Joshua Dobbs has another game, a game that is comparable, another show out game, shows that he can duplicate what he did against the Falcons. But that's something to take into account is, yeah, he had that crazy comeback and he looked amazing in the Falcon again in the game against the Falcons on short notice. But there's quite a big difference in quality of defense and players that are play for the Saints than do for the Falcons. I mean, the only thing that main thing that concerns me, and this is just because this has been a team issue, a Saints defensive like team issue. Like this is really one of the only issues that they have on their defense is that they've allowed big gains and a lot of rushing yards to quarterbacks. And I'm pretty sure Joshua Dobbs had 60, 70 yards rushing in the game against the Falcons. So I would not be surprised if he adds another 50 in this game against the Saints because they allowed 70 to Tyson Badgett just a week ago. So that's the main area where I'm concerned about the Vikings, and I'm concerned about Joshua Dobbs. But over his history, he's played for a good number of teams, like what 6, 7 teams, and has a losing record in starts and has more interceptions than touchdowns. So don't get fooled by this feel good story over the week that he's somehow going to be like a number one quarterback, like a franchise quarterback after that performance or something. Because that stock may be on sale and it's going high and people are bullish on it, but I'm not buying it because the Saints are just on a different level than Falcons defense. But anyways, let's get into player of the game and hot take and game picks and all that business. So first off, player of the game, and this is maybe just more of an appreciation pick. This may be what is today? Today's Friday, so this could just be Friday player appreciation pick more than anything, and just hope that his strong play continues. And so my player of the game will be Andres Pete. I have that highlighted at left tackle, or have an asterisk by it saying left tackle. Like that's where he has to play. And I'm hoping Andres Pete, can continue to put up the strong performances that he has the last 2 weeks against the Colts and against the Chicago Bears, where they didn't allow a sack all game against them. And I thought for sure Montez Sweat was going to come in and start eating right away, but he didn't. Derek Carr was pretty much untouched in that entire game, and Andres Pete maybe to start his starts at left tackle had like the best game of a left tackle all year in his first start as the Saints left tackle against the Colts. So I'm expecting another strong performance from Andres Pete at left tackle, the position that he was back in 2015 when he was originally drafted. That's what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be a left tackle. You don't draft guards or right tackles with the top 15 pick. He was like the 12th pick in the draft in 2015. Like that's where a left tackle is supposed to be being picked. And so back at his natural position, the last 2 games he's looked good, and I hope that he can duplicate that or triplicate it, hit us with a three piece. All right, so that's my player of the game. Hard to log stats for that, but probably if you don't hear his name the entire game, or you don't see him on his ass, or giving up a sack or a bad holding play, pretty much if you don't hear Andres Pete's name the entire game, then he's probably your player of the game or your best offensive lineman. So hopefully Derek Carr is able to be kept clean, and I guess it depends on where Danielle Hunter lines up. But if Danielle Hunter lines up a good bit on Andres Pete, and Andres Pete doesn't allow any pressure or sacks or any penalties or anything like that, it would be pretty impressive in performance. But I guess we'll have to wait and see where Danielle Hunter all lines up, or if he's moving around the entire game. All right, hot take. Onto a hot take. And this Saints defense is really fun to watch. Not just because they don't give up a lot of yards or they're fast and smart, like veteran defense, so that they don't get fooled a lot, and they get teams off the field in tough situations. Just all around a good defense. With their pass defense being like one of the best. Their rush defense is a little sketchy because of what they allow to quarterbacks. But the really thing that's so exciting and fun to watch about this team that they didn't exude like at all last year is the fact that this team, they're ball hawking, man. They're like one of the top teams. They're in the top five. They may be tied for first in total turnovers. I think they have 14 interceptions and maybe like 18 total. So like they've forced like 4 fumbles this year and have 14 interceptions. So that's the numbers are somewhere around there. In this game, I'm predicting the Saints to have another strong performance like they did against the Chicago Bears, and I'm predicting Joshua Dobbs to come back down to earth. His feel-good story is going to come to a screeching halt. It's going to come to a screeching halt, and the airbag is going to go off, and he's going to feel like he was in a wreck after this game because I don't see him having an all-time performance, a fourth quarter comeback, game-winning drive like that. That's not going to happen against the Saints. But what is going to happen is they're going to turn the ball over 5 times, just like they did against the Bears. He's going to throw a couple interceptions. He's going to get strip sacked. Alexander Madison, their running back's going to fumble. Somehow, 5 turnovers are going to pile up again, just like they did in the Bears game, because this is a veteran, savvy, ball hawking defense, and that goes a long way with being able to force the fumbles, because you have these veteran, smart, savvy players. You have a player like Paulson Depot didn't he came from Stanford, I think, Stanford or Princeton or one of those. Let me look at that real quick. I want to say he came from Stanford, so he's an intelligent player. Yeah, so he came from Stanford, so he's an intelligent player. Been the starter for a couple of years now. You had Marcus May, who's been the starter, has been a starting safety since 2017, and then you have the most intelligent, smart, like a veteran player on your team force the game sealing strip sack and Demario Davis. So it's just a smart defense that knows how to strip sack and get fumbles, peanut punch, and all that. And you're going to see a duplicate, a sequel to that on Sunday. And hopefully the Saints are able to score more points with it than they were able to against the Bears. Getting the ball in Bears territory like 5 times in that game and only able to come away with like 10 total points off of it. So hopefully they can do more with that. And so on to my game pick here. So I'm looking to pick the Saints to win 3 times in a row here. So I'm hoping the Saints can really get a win streak going, a 3-game win streak going, be 6-4 going into the bye week with being the sole possession of the NFC South. Like that it wouldn't get much better than that. The only way it get much better than that is if the season would just come to an end right now and the Saints would be the NFC South winners and the playoffs just start right now, because this may be the peak of the Saints season right now, is just being in sole possession of the NFC South and have some easy wins coming up. It'll be interesting to see how the game against the Falcons goes after the bye week. But I'm picking the Saints to win this, and I'm picking them to win big, big. But they're going to do more with these turnovers than they did against the Chicago Bears. But I'm picking them to have a pretty impressive win. This may be the statement game for the Saints if the majority of their top players stay healthy throughout this game. No scares or no Derek Carr going down in the second half or anything like that. But I'm picking the Saints to win 31-20. So this game may be similar to like all the games that they've had the last 3 weeks. They may duplicate this one with another one where they look awful in the first half. Allow 17 points in the first half, which they were able to break that streak uh, against the Bears by only allowing 15. They came very close to allowing 17 again, but uh, they missed. Cairo Santos missed a 40-yard field goal that would have gave them 17 points in that game. But I think we may see that again in this game. I could definitely see this because this has just been a trend. After a couple games, it's considered a trend, and then after a few and then after a few more, you get farther in the season. That it just becomes who you are. It's not a trend anymore. There's no stick behind it happening. It's just who you are and who you've become. So I think there's a good chance that you may see that in this game where they give up 14, 17 points in the first half, and then they're just locked down in the second half, just completely shut down defense in the second half. So, and if the Saints are able to do that and throw in some turnovers and be able to do a little bit more than they were able to do with them against the Chicago Bears, then I think the score will be high. But I think it'd be pretty unwise to predict that a Saints opponent is going to score less than 17 points because that's just been pretty much a gift. You're rewarded 17 Saints opponents so recently in the last 4 or 5 games have been just gifted 17 points to start every game. And I don't know. I don't know if I see that coming to an end. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you this evening. I'm excited for this game against the Vikings. Vikings are one of the Saints' biggest rivals. More so in the playoffs and in the regular season, because obviously I'm not even going to mention the reasons why. But crazy stuff happens when the Saints play the Vikings. So we could be in for some more of that. Who knows? Joshua Dobbs may end up having a perfect game or rush for 100 yards in this game. So something freaky or crazy is going to happen in this game against the Vikings because it seemingly always does when the Saints play the Vikings. Something always crazy happens. One of the others fan base is always left unhappy after the game, and they're definitely still not over. Vikings fans are definitely still not over the NFC Championship and the bounty farce. But I'm excited, and I want this win over the Vikings because I don't like them, but also because it would be amazing to go to 6-4 and go into the bye week 2 games above 500 and sole possession of the NFC South. I want it. I need it. So let's hope those boys can pull that off for us. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you this evening. So can I get a who dat and can I get a check, please?